Hi there, I'm Jolene and this is T.L.C. Cares. I'm a registered nurse with T.L.C. Private Home Care located at 25 Main Street in Buzzards Bay. And today I have Kelly Duggan on our show, who's a physical therapist. She's my neighbor on Main Street at 85 Main Street, Buzzards Bay. Kelly, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's great to be down the road from such a business that, you know, we are kind of playing back and forth a little bit with each other, and, you know, as much as we can support the clients that you see, we want to be able to do that. So I'm happy to be here today.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So we're going to talk about falls again. Yep, good. As seniors in our community, we don't want them to fall. So take it away.
Yeah, so a little bit about fall prevention. As you know, the older we get, the more likely we are to fall. People over the age of 65, anywhere from 28 to 35% of them will have a fall every year.
That's a lot.
So that's over a quarter of these people that are falling. So what I wanted to talk to today were the reasons that we fall, and then some ways we can make improvements so that we're less likely to fall.
Okay, sounds great.
Great. So there are four main contributors to falls. There's intrinsic, things that are internal with us. There are extrinsic, things around us. Socioeconomic and environmental reasons that we fall. So I want to talk about a little bit each of those categories. So we'll start first with intrinsic.
Okay.
No, we'll start first with biological, excuse me.
Biological.
Which would be the intrinsic things. But so there are biological reasons. So the older we get, the more likely we are to fall. Our gender, women are more likely to fall than men. That's just when you look at the research of it.
Okay.
Race as well can play a role. A decline in strength, which can happen, as we'll talk about with that can happen with illness, that can happen with hospital stays, but any decline in strength is going to result in more likely to have falls. Your cognitive abilities, so things like Alzheimer's, dementia, having diagnoses like those, you are more likely to fall. And the other part of the biological would be chronic illnesses. Okay. The more illnesses or impairments that someone has, the more likely they are to fall. Okay. So if you're listening and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm a woman, I have multiple illnesses.
I'm in trouble.
Yeah, listen up. So we have behavioral factors related to falls as well. So multiple medication use. Again, we said multiple illnesses typically goes along with multiple medication use. If you are someone that is on multiple medications, you are at a higher risk of falls. Alcohol use, of course, is going to result in a higher risk of falls. Lack of physical activity, which can happen with surgery and things like that, in illness. Or
hospital stay.
Hospital stay, even COVID itself.
Right.
All of that can kind of set in a lack of activity pretty quickly.
Okay.
Poor footwear, meaning too small, too high of a heel, or too loose of a shoe. So a lot of people love to wear slippers in the home. Right. The big boots, Uggs, those actually all are pretty big contributors to falls. Okay. And then the other behavioral aspect of it would be risky behaviors. So if I were to ask you, what do you think a risky behavior would be, what would you?
Carrying up a laundry basket from the basement and not holding a railing. Alcohol use, as you said before. Driving while texting.
Yeah, yes.
That's pretty bad.
Those are big ones for sure. When we think of risky behaviors related to falls, it's simple things. So I would consider a risky behavior if there is a curb and there's a railing, but I'm like, the railing's over there, I'm gonna go for it. That's a risky behavior. So you don't have to be doing something like skydiving or going for a run for it to be considered a risky behavior if you have some of these other risk factors. As you're aging, you have a little weakness, you have to really be extra cautious, particularly like you mentioned, carrying a laundry basket up the stairs. That's a big risk. If you are someone that collects things on your stairs, either to display nutcrackers, or if you collect things on your stairs like I do because they're all supposed to go upstairs. But nobody brings them upstairs. That's a risky behavior.
And clutter.
It's cluttered. Now you have a bunch of fall risks on multiple stairs. all of that would be considered and fall into the category of a risky
What
behavior.
about pets?
Pets, absolutely. Particularly when you're using a cane or a walker or some sort of assistive device in the home. Pets are curious, and they can also be scared of things like that, so they can go running. So be very cautious if you have pets in the home, and particularly if you are at risk of falls or you're using an assistive device that may be new.
Right.
For sure.
Okay.
Environmental risk factors, so we'll go over just a few of those as well. So those would be home hazards, which would be pets. Pets are considered home hazards. Throw rugs are considered home hazards.
Yes, we know about those, yeah.
So a lot of people like to have them, especially in New England in the winter, keeps the home warm. But if they are not sealed down tight, they are a huge tripping hazard in the home, as you know, with home care. Low lighting is also a risk of falls. We love the night lights that plug into the wall that come on automatically, so you don't have to remember to switch them on and off. But as soon as it gets dark, that light goes on. Low lighting is a home hazard that contributes to risk of falls, as you know. And then there are community hazards as well. There are certain areas, libraries, town halls, senior centers, that it's really important that we have railings, that we have stairs that are accessible, that we have ramps. It's not so bad in Buzzards Bay, but when you go into an old city, like if you go into Boston and you're hanging out in the North End, there are protections over historical buildings. So we know everything new has to be compliant with the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act. So there should be railings, there should be ramps. When you go into an old city that has protections because there's historical buildings, you're not going to see that. So there are going to be a lot more community hazards in an old city like Plymouth or Boston.
I never really thought about that, but
it's just one other thing to kind of think about as you're going into the city, especially someone who may be recovering from an illness, who sometimes uses a cane, sometimes doesn't. They're like, I'm going in the I'm not bringing the cane. That's when you want to bring the cane, because for sure you don't know if you're going to have that additional support when you're walking through. That's good. So the last category of some of the main risk factors of a fall would be socioeconomic. So this would be low income. If you are someone that is low income or lives in low income housing, you are more likely to fall. And this is historically, this is the information that research is giving us when we look back on who has fallen within the last 5-10 years. Low education. So people with lower education, maybe a high school diploma or maybe not even that, more likely to fall as they age. Inadequate housing. So again, space size can be an issue. ADA ability can be an issue as well. So inadequate housing would kind of line up with that. A lack of social interaction. So our seniors that like to stay in the home are putting themselves at a higher risk of falls. That and a higher risk of injuries when they do fall. And part of that is they don't have the resources. You know, if they're not getting out and about, whether it's physically or just with a phone call with someone regularly, and they have a fall in the home, there isn't someone to immediately notice, you know what, Jane wasn't here on Tuesday. I'm going to call her and see what's going on. So you're at a higher risk of falls, but you're also at a higher risk of being injured from a fall because you may be on the floor longer.
So make friends.
Make friends, or at least find somebody who will check in with you.
Likes to talk on the phone.
On a regular basis, absolutely. So limited access to health and social care, we know that as well. You know, that's going to allow people to manage your medications so that if you are on multiple medications, you're on the right ones and you're not on ones that are causing dizziness or lightheadedness or blood pressure issues, which can contribute to falls. And then the last is a lack of community resources. So in Buzzards Bay, we do have the Senior Center. We have a phenomenal T.L.C. which would be helpful as well, right?
Don't have to be alone. We can help you. We
Absolutely.
can come in for some companionship.
I'm sure for all of the things that I just mentioned, you guys have resources
Absolutely, absolutely. And the Senior Center is wonderful on Main Street. They have so many programs over there.
Yeah.
And social interaction, it's huge. It's really, really positive. And we have public transportation with GATRA that they can get you around. So if you don't have a car and you can't get to a medical appointment, they can help you there too. So it's important.
Absolutely. So the last thing I want to talk about a little bit about falls, and I know you had some questions as well for me. So what can we do, again, if someone is here watching this episode and they're listening and they're like, oh my gosh.
So what can you do?
A lot of those things are me. You can exercise, and you can do that in a safe way. There are plenty of gyms around here to join, personal trainers.
Even going out walking.
Just going out walking on the canal.
Yeah.
Getting movement and exercise is great. Physical therapy, where physical therapy you are on Main Street, right down the street from Jolene. But, you know, there's great physical therapists everywhere. But getting involved, if you're not sure how to start an exercise program, if you're like, I want to do it, but I don't want to get hurt, physical therapy is your best entry point. You don't have to have an injury to go to a physical therapist. You could just call and say, I want to work on my balance, or I want to work on my strength.
You have a lot of equipment there as well.
We do,
It's a beautiful location.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we can do all that, but any clinic can do that as well. But again, physical therapy is a nice, safe entry point for a lot of our seniors. Social groups, getting involved in those groups, going to the senior center.
Yep.
Calling your doctor if you're on multiple medications, or you know, if any of these things we talked about today are of a concern for you, calling your doctor and saying, hey, I think I'm at a risk of falls. I heard this lecture today and it sounded like me. How can I put myself at a lower risk of falls?
Education.
Just having that conversation.
Yep. If you're not sure about your meds, pick up the phone and call your doctor.
Absolutely, yes. And then the last would be taking a look around your home. Things like clutter, things like throw rugs. Do you have adequate lighting? Those are quick, easy fixes. And a lot of times what I suggest with that is if it is something that you want to do, that you're going in with a partner and doing that and not doing that by yourself.
Right.
You don't want to be moving big boxes. You don't want to be moving stacks of newspapers or laundry
Call your
piles.
family, call a family friend. They'll help you.
Absolutely. So those are some of the things that you can do to decrease your risk of falls.
That's wonderful. It's really good information. It really is. If someone's having balance issues, if one of our older seniors is having balance issues, how can physical therapy help?
Yeah, so when you come into physical therapy and you say, I think I'm having balance issues, we can help in a lot of different ways. A lot of times it is strength related, but it's also just strictly balance related. Our body doesn't have as quick of reactions or fall reactions as it did, you know, when we were younger. And so just like we can work on a muscle and do bicep curls to make your biceps stronger, we can do exercises specifically targeted to your balance and where your balance issues are to make your balance system stronger. So whether the balance issue is coming from your ankles, your hips, your trunk, or your vision, we can work on all of those aspects.
Do you do an initial assessment when we first come in?
Someone would come in, we would do a balance assessment, we would do a strength assessment. There's a lot of different balance tests that we would do with someone. So if someone walked in and they were using a walker, we would pick a specific balance test. If they came in and they were really agile, we would pick a very different balance test. So there are a lot of different balance tests that we would choose depending on their current status. And then we would start to pick some exercises specific to them from there. And we also are trained in vestibular therapy. So if you're having balance issues related to an inner ear vestibular problem, positional vertigo, Meniere's disease, things like that, we would address it.
Where you get dizzy.
Where you get dizzy, yes. We would address it a little differently.
Yeah, okay, good. So say someone's getting out of rehab and they just had pneumonia. How can physical therapy help with that?
Yeah, so it's really important when someone's coming out of rehab for no matter what issue that they are following up with a therapist for strengthening, for endurance, and for cardiovascular reasons. We can address all of those issues. Fatigue and lack of endurance sets in really quickly.
Yes, it does.
Takes a long time to get back, you could be in bed for 3 days, and it's only 3 days, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God,
My legs
I'm
don't
winded.
work.
My legs don't
I
work.
feel weak.
You go to get out of
Right.
the car, and you know, doing this rocking back and forth,
Right.
and it happens really fast. So I would suggest anybody, that, you know, whether it's pneumonia or something else, they're following up with rehab, whether it's, you know, in the home rehab,
okay.
or they're actually going to an outpatient facility, but for strength, endurance, and whatever else they might need with
Now, what's a typical amount of time someone comes to physical therapy? Not during the hour, but like, do they come 2 and 3 times a week?
Yeah, so it's different for everybody. So
Okay.
if they're coming from the hospital and they're really deconditioned, they might want to come more than 2
Okay,
times a week.
yeah.
Most people are usually 2 times a week. For things like tendinitis,
Yeah.
usually 6 weeks. For things like deconditioning, sometimes 2
Yep.
to 3 weeks they're back at it, and sometimes it's 2 to 3 months. It's
Okay.
really very
It
dependent.
depends on the person.
Yep, and it depends on their goals and where they want to get to.
And if they go home and do the exercises that you're teaching them,
That's
a big
part.
one. You
That's
know,
a big
That's
part.
where
Compliance.
TLC private home care comes in, because we put the aids in them in their homes, and then we encourage them to do the exexercises.
That's the hardest part.
yeah,
the
it
the
is.
implementation of the action.
Right, it is, yeah.
That's great.
Do you have anything else to add? To
No.
tell our seniors in the community, because this is the show that we're trying to, you know, promote. To
Yeah, so I
help.
think I would just like to say it is common in the winter for everyone to experience some deconditioning. The days are shorter, we're doing less, and we're outside less. So it's
Right.
very common in the spring for people to, you know, so you have a little yard, you're like, I'm gonna do yard cleanup today.
Yeah, gardening.
No, don't pick the whole day.
Yeah.
Choose, you know, 2 hours, keeping it short. You don't want to overdo it, and starting cleanup that way. So whether it's spring cleaning for your house or spring cleaning for your yard, just little burst is great.
Right.
An hour here, 2 hours there, and not choosing a full day to do it. Because to be completely honest, we see people that end up with overuse injuries every March, April, May,
Yep.
because we get a couple nice days and people just overdo it in the yard.
And
or
don't
in
use the step
house.
stools in the home, because if you're trying to take down your curtains so you can wash them in the springtime, but have somebody take them down for you.
Yes,
I think that's really important.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really common. Like we said, it's over a quarter of the population that's going to have a fall. So if you have a fall, just being honest with it,
Right.
being honest with, if you live with someone, being honest with your doctor, and then being honest with yourself and saying, let me just go get this checked out.
I
Get a
think
little
that's important.
tune-up.
Right.
Yeah.
Being honest with yourself. It's not something that everybody is forthcoming to do. So
No, but it's common.
it's hard. Yep.
Yeah, so
Yeah. So if anybody needs any physical therapy, it's Kelly Duggan at Physical Therapy University, Main Street, Buzzards Bay. They also have a Bridgewater location. Today, this was TLC Cares. We just want to keep you all from falling and hope to see you back again. I'm Jolene Ciccheset, registered nurse from TLC Private Home Care. Thank you, Kelly.
thanks for having me.
Absolutely.